Okay, just give me 1 minute because you're there. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Academy of Astrology UK. I'm Rhoda Chang, and today is our Worldscope discussion group. And then today we have leading by Tania and Alejo. But we also have other astrologers joining us. Sharon maybe will join us later. Hello, Christy. So if you want to join us, you can open your microphone. Feel free, okay? Open your microphone and give you your opinion. And then, feel free. And also in another side, I will monitor on the YouTube. If anyone has question on YouTube, I will mention it. Okay, so welcome everyone. And so as we announced today, we will talk about majorly 3 topics, but focus on Capricorn Ingress Chart. And then I think because when I discussed with Alejo and Tania, we just decide, because in the beginning, to be honest, I'm quite boring. I say, German just recently changed the government. Maybe we should talk about it. Tania said, well, Ukraine will be more hot, will be more
boring.
Boring. Yes, I try not to say that. I try not to mention that word boring. It's kind of a typical idea about that. How to say his name? Scholz, right? Scholz. He also have like that image, boring image.
That's it.
So I don't want to give a kind of a stereotype, but anyway, but we will talk about focus on Ukraine and Russia and the area, and also recently, because last week we have Maria joining us, and Maria talking about the Argentina situation was quite interesting. And people are not allowed to use credit card to buy airplane ticket for some reason. I was like, oh my God. So Alejo going to talk a little bit about that with us. And then if we have time, I will be last one. We will examine a little bit about the winter solstice in China, what's going to happen there and what we can expect. So I will, wait a minute, let me make Alejo a co-host and Tania too. But everyone feel free to turn on your microphone to talk. Okay, now Alejo, for you.
Okay, Rod, thank you. I'm a bit nervous, to be honest.
Don't be nervous.
Let's see. Oh wait, what happened with that presentation? I had it ready. It's gone now. Give me just a second.
Don't worry.
Okay, here we are. All right. So I only have a few slides to present about this Capricorn Ingress and the situation in Argentina, the financial situation. I think about the situation about the money and the dollars. I think it's important, but there's also another theme that I want to address. This is first. Okay, this is the astral chart, the natal chart of Argentina. I'm not sure about the timing. I think they don't know when it was signed. So in 1816, the different states, we don't call them states, we call them provincias. They kind of got together and they signed this, declared the independence. I think we don't have the time. That's why we use midday, but every astrologer uses this one. So we can count it as valid, I guess. And it's a rising Libra, 24 degrees. The moon in Capricorn and the sun in Cancer. So it's this strong full moon feeling in this chart. And the idea that maybe the people are always against those in power or the other way around, I don't know. There was an astrologer who said that we needed to do a new declaration of independence to get a better chart. I don't know. Anyway, so this is the chart. I just wanted to show you so you get a bit familiar. And when we talk about the problem in Argentina is that it has a lot of debts. It owes money. It owes money all the time. And if you look at the chart here, you have the north node is in the 8th house and the south node is in the 2nd house. So it's kind of one of the themes for this chart is how to manage resources and how to deal with other people's resources, maybe. I mean, maybe we need to learn how to deal with other people's resources. We're kind of not so good at that. We have
Could I ask you something?
Please, yes.
If this was your client, what
Yes.
would you say to him or her?
About
the second house, the south node, the debts, as just a thought experiment, really.
It's a good idea. So I think I would say, I have just finished teaching a webinar on the nodal axis. So my brain is a bit burned out now thinking about the nodal axis, but I think I would say something like, it's a person who might be called to go deep into relationships, into one-to-one relationships, and to see how they share resources, but not only physical resources, only emotional resources. And maybe I would also talk about inheritances. So they might have to see what's the value and the worth of their inheritances. And I'm not just talking materially speaking, also psychologically or emotionally speaking. So I think they should see a little bit of their family history, maybe.
Thank you.
Rod, I think you're going to say something. That's why you stopped.
How do you know? Well, I just want to chip in because as outer planet, Uranus and Neptune, and even include nodal axis in the second house. This maybe explain why Argentina are usually get involved with when the world's changing. The financial situation is also changing, because the outer planet represent the influence from outside world, from all the other place, not only inland. So it makes a bigger picture. So when you have the what Julia asked the questions about, what if this is a person, then I will say this person's financial situation are more likely to echo when the outside world changing.
Ah, okay, nice. Yes. I think it also talks about a lot of instability in the financial situation.
Could be, yeah.
Uranus and Neptune. And this is ruled by Mars in Leo in the 10th. So I think there's something about pride, believing too much of yourself, perhaps, in the way that you spend money or something like that.
Because it's in Sagittarius, it's very showy. It's like the tango, but with money.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Then also, I think when there's a Scorpio, sometimes there is conflict. It's interesting. Scorpio's here, the North Node in the 8th house. Sometimes I think there is some kind of conflict. And I think there is some kind of conflict in Argentina about who owns the resources in Argentina. And I think this is not only for Argentina, but for many countries in the Southern Hemisphere. I think for Latin America and for Africa in general, there is a question about how these resources, how the land has been exploited by other countries. And I think that also could be the Uranus-Neptune, not what Rod were saying, like not being totally in ownership of your own resources, something like that. Okay, so another thing that I want to point out, because of what I'm going to bring later, is that Jupiter is here on the Ascendant. And I think this could be kind of an idealistic kind of personality. It's in Scorpio, so there's a lot of sarcasm in Argentina. I think it's part of the culture. But there is this kind of, I think there is this kind of hoping attitude that things will resolve. Something will happen in the end, and things will be okay. Okay, now this is a short history of the debt of Argentina. I didn't start with Perón. It started way before, like in 1930, I think, with Uriburu. And he started asking money to the International Monetary Bank, the IMF. And okay, but I'm not going to go that far. So I want to go. Why am I bringing this in? Because André Barbeau says that this cycle of Saturn-Uranus is the Americanization of the world. And what we see in the history of Argentina is that, Perón got into power. He got into power because he declared, not because, but he was one of the leading figures who wanted to declare war against Germany and Japan. And then he becomes president, and he pays all of the external debt. This is 1952. So we have here the beginning of the cycle, Saturn Uranus. 1952, we are at the first square. And that's when Argentina pays all of the external debt. Now, just to make sure, it's not that I'm pro Perón, okay? There are many things, there are many things wrong about Perón, in my opinion, like you could not speak against him and that kinds of things. But it's true that some things were okay. And one of the things I think is this one. He paid the external debt. He fought for a lot of rights for the working class. So that part, I think we should grant him. In 1955, there's a coup d'etat and he loses power. And then in the 60s and 70s, we start getting a lot of dictatorships in Argentina, and I think in general in Latin America. And these dictatorships are supported by the International Bank, and particularly by the United States. And it's interesting because in the 1965, we have the Saturn opposing Uranus, and in 75, 77, we have the square. And according to Barbeau, this whole process is the Americanization of the world. And the reason why the United States supported these dictatorships is because, the Perón, the government, it was more like left-wing, and so they didn't like it that much. They were afraid of that. In 1988, we get the next cycle of Saturn-Uranus, and in 1990, we have President Menem, and he comes up with this idea that by decree, by law, $1 equals 1 Argentinian peso. So for a while it holds up, and it actually, people feel they're very rich. We always say you could have dinner with champagne, like people who would pizza with champagne, like people who would only afford pizza, suddenly they can afford champagne, so they will have champagne with pizza. And this is the 1990s. And then in 2001, Argentina falls into the greatest default in its history, and this matches the Saturn-Uranus square. Now, there's something wrong here in the dates. This is 2013, I think. Wait, there's something wrong in the dates. This is wrong. This year is wrong. Sorry. Let me think just a minute. 2003, is it possible? Okay, I don't remember exactly which year, but then we have Cristina Kirchner. And the Kirchner, both Nestor and Cristina Kirchner, the presidents. And again, I'm not supportive. I'm not saying that I support them. But one thing they did well is that they paid all of the debts that we had inherited from the dictatorship. And they kind of changed. They raised the debt within the country, but they reduced the debt with countries outside the country. Why? Because it's easier to pay in your own currency than to pay in dollars or in euros. In Argentina, we think in dollars, we don't think in euros. And they got some of the debt bought by Venezuela. So it's kind of they're changing allies, they're changing friends. And this is a bit worrying, perhaps. So this was kind of a very controversial move. And then we get Macri a few years later. And Argentina, the first thing it does is to pact a new debt with the IMF. So let me see if I have the dates here, because there's something wrong in the date. Okay, sorry, the years I don't think the years are perfectly okay. I should check that out. So Argentina pacts a new debt with the IMF with Macri, and this is the biggest one in history. So the IMF says that they are saving Argentina because they are giving money to Argentina in order for Argentina to pay all of the debts that the country has with some other countries. Cristina Kirchner, she accuses them because she says that this is not right, that in the IMF articles of how to lend money, they cannot lend money that's going to be taken away from the country. They can only lend money that's going to be invested in the country or something like that. And so it became also a controversial thing. And this is how Argentina gets, again, very much indebted. Now, during the Kirchners, what they did was that you could not change Argentinian pesos to dollars. so that they would use the dollars to pay the debt. Again, it was a very controversial measure because people wanted to own their own money, and it was their way to try to hold their dollars in order to be able to pay the debt. So now what's happening is that, again, there's a lot of problem because now the country that the government that we have today is the opposing party from Macri, and so they need to negotiate with the IMF to see how they pay this debt, and everything kind of every time they go into a negotiation, the whole country kind of stops. People are starting getting fired because there's this sense of instability, and that's how the whole thing about buying flying tickets and all of that came into play. But in my opinion, that's not the important part. The important part is that Argentina is constantly in this debt to the IMF, and it's like a cycle we cannot leave, we cannot get out of. Now, this is the Aries Ingress for the 20th of March, and it's Pisces rising. So I learned from Sharon that we need to do Libra. It's immutable. No, it's mutable. Yes, it's worth up until the Libra Ingress. So if I said it right, is it right, Sharon? Yes.
That's right, yeah.
This is the Libra Ingress for Buenos Aires. And it's Aquarius rising. It's the Sun in the 8th. And where is Saturn? Saturn here in the 12th, which sounds like something nasty is gonna, like, it doesn't sound very promising, I think. Even though Saturn is in Aquarius and everything, I think it doesn't sound very promising. I'm going to compare it in a minute. This is the Capricorn Ingress. So this is happening on the 21st of December, and it looks like a better picture. This one is Aries rising. The Sun is high in the sky next to the midheaven, and Mars is here in the 9th house. So here we have both of them together to be able to compare. And I'm going to show what I thought, but hopefully you're going to have more ideas. So here the Sun is in the 9th house of foreign affairs. And it's like Argentina is becoming in the limelight, of the world. Like everybody's looking at Argentina and to see what's happening. I also think this talks about, the 9th house talks about the legal system and the system of justice. And right now in Argentina, there's another thing that's going on, which is quite important, which is the fight of the natives, the people who were there before the Europeans arrived. And there's this association in the south, in Patagonia, who are starting to do some vandalism. So some parts of the society is accusing them of terrorism, and the government is saying, no, this is not terrorism. They are claiming for some rights, and we need to see how we do this. So I think this is also making, I think this Capricorn rising is also making the focus on the legal system and the systems of justice. The other thing I came up is that the Mars actually is also in the 9th house. So I think it becomes a very important theme for these months. And the other thing important is that Argentina has been chosen for the first time to preside in the United Nations Council to watch over human rights. Argentina has been elected, and I think it's emphasized in this Capricorn Ingress that the world is looking at how Argentina is going to defend human rights. Now Mars is here. I cannot see my whole screen now, but Mars is the ruler of the chart and is in the 9th house, but then it's also the ruler of the 8th house of debts and finances. So there's something between these two charts that kind of gets repeated, because even though Mars now is in the 9th house, it rules the 8th, and here it was in the 8th. So I think this theme of having to deal with this debt is a recurrent theme. Saturn here is squaring Jupiter. The Jupiter is in the 11th, which I think it's the Congress, right? The Senate. So I think there's something about, again, this idea of justice is repeated. And I think a lot of people are talking about in Argentina, who is responsible for the debt? Because it's not so clear, the original debt, well, I don't know if the original, but one huge amount of debt that we got were from dictatorships. So is it fair for the for democratic governments to have to pay for that when this was supported by the international bank. And you know, I have a bad feeling about this because Jupiter is ruling the 12th house. So I feel like there's not such a big possibility for justice right now. And also, you know, the square of Mars to Jupiter, I think it brings the idea of tension. So I'm wondering what's going to happen. You know, I know you wanted me to talk more about the finances, Rod, but I'm really worried about what's going to happen in the country where now that Argentina is head of this Human Rights Commission, when all of these human rights problems are happening right now.
When I beginning think about that, it's just because I think last week when Maria was talking about that, I say, oh, that is kind of unusual situation. And then it's not just want you to focus on, you know, economic, but I think basically we can look from the Capricorn Ingress Chart, the 10th house is pretty heavy. I think that,
yes.
You know, the government taking quite a lot in. If you don't mind, there's some question, there's some question on the from the YouTube
course, yes.
audience. And the first, I think, is not this chart, is while you're talking about the Saturn-Uranus opposition, and our audience, Carlin, is talking about, do you know where is the Uranus and Saturn conjunction in the Venezuela chart? Have you mentioned about Venezuela? I don't know, because I think you maybe mentioned
I mentioned that Argentina made a pact now. Venezuela bought some of the debt.
Okay, because she asked you where are these two planets in the Venezuela chart in 1946 and 1988?
Oh, I don't know.
Okay, you don't know. And and she also contributed to say that the Libra Ingress, the 29 degree, is kind of a critical point in a critical degree. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, feel free. Hello, everyone. Feel free to chip in.
The other thing is all of these planets you were saying in Capricorn in the 10th house. Like, I think something important is going to happen, you know, with the leader of the country, or with the country in the place the country is taking in the world, something like that. And it's it all goes back to the Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th. So
I think that Saturn Uranus square in the 2nd house and 11th house is pretty crucial, especially the as I think it's quite interesting, as I just mentioned, if anything in any outer planet in 2nd house is also receive the impact from the outside of country, or when the whole world changing, it going to, and this Uranus Saturn square is whole world. We don't know where it will start, but I think Argentina going to take a huge impact. Yeah, and then.
Sorry.
Sorry.
it was like super acclaimed. You know, they were all super happy that they chose Argentina for this. Because of the history. Argentina did a lot of work in trying to bring back human rights.
Yeah. She
would be interesting to see the 1st of May.
1st of May.
It would be interesting to see this chart in comparison with the 1st of May movement. Because, well, we all know the story about, you know, the people who disappeared from the aircraft or stuff like that. And the many years the women were searching or are still ongoing searching for their family members, and now Argentina is going to be one of those watchers for human rights, right?
Exactly.
So I would be interesting to compare.
And I think it's interesting that in this Capricorn you have the moon in Cancer, which is the people, but it could also be the mothers, you know. And it's opposing this Venus Pluto thing in Capricorn. So I think there is something of this this horrible history, you know, coming back to emerging back and seeing where it takes us. So we could read this like, okay, it's the people that they feel like they are deprived of Venus, who rules their money, so they are deprived of their money, and Pluto is taking their money. Or we could go to this idea of these women that are taking now. When Argentina was elected, in the speech they mentioned, we call them the Madres of Plaza de Mayo, the Mothers of May Square, and they were mentioned about the work they did. They went to the UN when all this happened. They went to the UN to say that this was happening. So I think it's an interesting point. And then the last, I don't know, do I have time for one more slide? Or?
Oh yes, please.
This is the chart of Argentina, and this is the Capricorn Ingress.
Okay, yeah, interesting, because Caroline just asked about that.
Okay, good.
Same thing.
I think it's
great.
Important. And what I think it's important, one of the things I want to mention is this Chiron in the 5th in the chart of Argentina, which I think it's a wound on the identity. And Chiron in Pisces, so I think, Argentina, I mean, I hate talking about Argentina because it's so diverse inside, but if we look at this chart, if this was a person, like I was asked before, I would say there's something about who you are that you fear to express, that you are not sure how to express it, that you fear you're going to be judged for it. And you need to learn to accept the whole of who you are to be able to express it. And Argentina, in its history, I don't think they accept that they massacred all of the original people, like not all, but mostly all of them. And now that it is coming on the limelight, human rights, and it's coming on the limelight because of the dictatorships and everything that's happening. But at the same time, we have this conflict going on in Patagonia. I think it's the opportunity to see this. What I found in this chart is that the South Node on Mars, especially Mars, is very close to Uranus in the 2nd house, which I think could kind of activate the whole thing, that the money suddenly goes away and we have no control over the money. And then we also have this opposition that we were talking about. This is squaring Jupiter and also the Ascendant, if you want to. So I think really what you were saying, I think the role that Argentina will take in the world will be kind of really, really, I mean, I think it's an opportunity to take a leading role towards justice and towards justice, and with Jupiter in Scorpio, maybe abuse, power abuse and all of that, to kind of make a stand on all of that, all of those things. I don't know. So this is what I prepared.
Oh, thank you, Alejo. Anyone want to chip in? Anyone want to have any comment? Sharon, Anna?
Yes, I would like to add something. Well, I used to live in Argentina for 10 years, so I'm kind of familiar with yes, so I'm kind of, I know the story, but it will be interesting to have a look at the upcoming Saturn return of Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it will be very soon. It will be maybe in 23, I guess. But it will be very interesting to check that, since Saturn is the ruler of the 4th house.
Yes.
And the 5th, no? And the 5th. So I think that will be maybe restrictions, or maybe some discipline of some loose things that happen, especially in the economy, no? So I think it would be advisable to have a look at that moment.
Good. Also, you made me remember we're going through the Neptune square.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot of illusions that are kind of falling apart right now of what, in Argentina, if you live there, in Argentina, everybody's talking all the time of the great country we could be. Yeah. But the country, it's like, but we're just this, and we could be such a great country. And I live in Europe. Every time I go, they go like, I don't know, whatever they show me, whatever they give me, let's say they give me this cup. Oh, do you like this cup of water? Well, I'm sure in Europe they're so much better. And I'm like, no, actually, there are many things that are so much better in Argentina, but there's this constant feeling that we could have been so much better than we are, which I think also it's a little bit of Chiron in the 5th, but
Yeah, Christine, why not you open your microphone, join us? I think Christy just typed, I like Christy's voice. Because during last conference, Christy hosted a lot of people.
Hi, Rod. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for that. No, I just noticed that there's this yacht there in the natal chart, like apex Mars as an apex, and then Chiron, and wide and IC is quite exact, but then the moon joins in there as well with the IC. So it's definitely about the identity, how they come across as well, how they think they come across. And I don't know, like about you, but like when I was looking at this chart, like I have a strong sense of this, because I have some Argentinian friends as well, and there is this element of this kind of collective heritage, this conquistador element as well, that it's strongly embedded in the psyche as well still.
Yes.
And you know what was done and why it was done and how it was done and how it's been built still, you know, elements of that.
Yeah,
sorry, that's my 5 minutes.
No, I agree. Yes. Yes, I agree.
I've got something I'd like to say. Argentina, it means silver, doesn't it?
Yes.
And the moon is very well placed, except that it's opposite Pluto and Venus. So I don't know what happened with the silver. Could somebody tell me briefly?
I mean, they called it silver because they thought when they were coming in, if I remember the story well, when they were coming in, there's this river, we call it El Río de la Plata, which is a silver river. And because of the light, it looked like it was shining. And also they thought that they were gonna find so many like precious metals and stuff.
Do they find silver there?
Yes.
I don't know if they found silver. I don't think
yes,
they
did. That's what Argentina means, silver. Something.
Yeah. But I think they were hoping to find it. But as far as I know, I don't think they found it.
I think that's stellium in Cancer as well, because Cancer obviously rules silver. So that's up there in the night. So they, you know, that's kind of belief of that as well.
Okay.
Yeah, very interesting. Thanks for that point. Whoever mentioned that, sorry, I didn't know.
Yeah, thank you. Well, someone just chipping say, well, they have a nice mailback wife from Argentina last night. Really enjoyed it. Okay, Alejo will be happy to hear that. Okay, so because we only have a little bit of time, so should we switch to Tania? Because Tania going to talk about an even hotter area, Ukraine.
Hopefully not. Hopefully it won't be so hot.
Really hope they don't. Yeah, hope they cool down.
Yeah, hopefully they will cool down, right? So let me get all these faces off here. Sorry. Okay. And also this one. Okay. Yeah, so I'm not going to talk about Russia, but I'm going to talk about Ukraine. And well, we know that Ukraine has a major problem. And I put on this map here just to show you the dimensions of the problem. So Ukraine is this one. It's actually the biggest country in, well, it's not really Europe, but well, let's call it Europe. It's much bigger than Germany, much bigger than Poland, but much smaller than Russia, which is obviously the greatest country, not greatest, but the biggest country in the world. So I think we have to look at these borders here, and especially this part, which is actually under fire, or well, it could be. So this is what I'm going to talk about. Okay, I looked at the story of the history of Ukraine, as I always do when I search the charts. I'm not just opening the book of, you know, Nick Campion and take the chart out from Ukraine or any other country. I have to see if it resonates with what I am doing and what I want to show. And so the first thing I found out is that Ukraine and Russia have once been the same, actually, or they derive from the same, yeah, it's kind of agglomerate of, or like original country, which is the Kievan Rus. And both Russia and Ukraine call this their cultural ancestor. So this was actually a really huge area around 842, it was first mentioned. And from this Kievan Rus developed the later Russia, and it was redimensioned and became Ukraine afterwards. So so we have to bear in mind this Kievan Rus is an original, is a mother of the both countries. So yeah, there is in Wikipedia, I think there is the mention of the year 852, which in which this Kievan Rus was first mentioned. So I was still searching for the chart which I could use for Ukraine. So, and there's a lot of history about it, and it has been redated to the January 20th, 842. And this is actually the chart when the land of Rus, which is Kievan Rus, was first mentioned. I just want to bring this up here before we go to the other charts. And yeah, really interesting, the axis here between from Gemini and Sagittarius, and Capricorn here in Saturn in Capricorn. But this is just what I started to read. And then when I started to think, okay, when Kievan Rus and Russia became two different countries, so could we use the chart for Kievan Rus for the 842 and maybe Russia for a different chart? And this is because I don't want to use just a modern, or I doubted that it could be helpful to use just the modern Russia chart, because there are so many charts of Russia, you know, the Russian Federation, then there was the UdSSR, then there was the Tsar, what is called country, and then there were so many others. But the Russians start their own history with Igor the Terrible, or the Terrific, or so he was also called Igor Slovos. And there is a very famous poem in which the most famous poem actually of Russian culture. And this poem tells the story of this of the defeat of Igor Slovos' army. And what is so interesting about this story is that it starts with an eclipse. So this is why I researched this chart, and it's really interesting to see that in the poem it is described that Igor saw this huge nefast light becoming less, and he had the sensation that it could be, you know, a bad sign to start with the absence of light. And actually you see the chart is pretty telling. The eclipse is taking place in the 8th house, and so and indeed it was like that. He lost the battle, and badly, but it seems that this has been kind of considered the beginning actually of the Russian history. But well, I want to skip this one and come to our Capricorn Ingress. So since I have seen so many different charts for Ukraine and Russia, I started not to look actually so much at proclamation. I will show the proclamation chart later, and I will use it for some details. But I started to look first at the Capricorn chart, Ingress chart, and then I will have a look at the eclipses, the recent eclipses, the lunar eclipse, the solar eclipse, and the greater conjunction. So, and since I know that not everybody is a traditional astrologer, I made it like with little notepads, so maybe you can follow me better. So what I do is first I look at the ascendant, and what I see, so it's Cancer rising, and the moon is actually in her domicile, which is a very strong position. But what I also see is that she is in the bounds of Saturn, so malefic, and she is about to change her sign. So what I would see is she has a lot of accidental dignity because she is angular, but she's going to lose her essential dignity in just a few time. Second, it's a nocturnal chart. You see, maybe you're not all familiar with whole sign houses, but you see the descendant and the moon has already, the sun, sorry, has already set. So it's a nocturnal chart, but we see that the moon is rising, which yeah, it's augmenting or it's increasing her accidental strength. The moon describes the people of Ukraine and shares, and this is very important, she's the exaltation ruler of the 11th house, which I associate not only with friends and help, but also with international organizations such as the NATO. Yeah, the moon is in the bounds of Saturn, who is an aversion in the 8th house of defeat or loss or problems. So the moon opposes Venus, and if you want Pluto, Mercury, and the sun. So what I see here, I don't know if you have read Mark Edmonds, a modern astrologer actually, and if you forget about all these planets and what they mean, and you just look at the chart and figure the planets are just dots, then you see that on the one side there is the moon, and on the other side, just in opposition, are all these planets. Okay, even if you don't consider aversion or whatever, we see all these planets just opposing the moon, which is not really a good sign here. It creates a lot of tension, absolutely a lot of tension, and all this tension is against the people of Ukraine or the Ukrainian identity. So what I also see is that Venus is the diurnal triplicity ruler of the earth signs. So where is Venus? Here up. And we have said that she rules the 11th house, right? And she rules the 4th house of raw materials and everything what is in the soil beneath the earth. But since this is a night chart, she loses her triplicity rulership because she rules the Earth's triplicity by day. So, and she's also retrograde. You can see this here, right? So she has angular dignity because she is right on the descendant, but her essential dignities are going to weaken. So I wouldn't count so much on the allies and yeah, you know, international partnerships or help organizations or whatever. Yeah. Okay. Also, this describes the conflict between the Ukrainians, which are symbolized by the moon, and Venus, who is actually totally in opposition to the moon, right? So if Venus describes what is in the soil or the land or, you know, the borders of Ukraine, then it's in opposition to the people. There is a conflict. Okay. Yeah, Venus is in the 7th house of open enemies, which I think we can associate in this case with Russia. Yeah, this is what I said already. So the international organizations like NATO or similar are actually in the house of the enemies, right? So they are disposed by the enemies. What does it mean? So that means that there's somebody who set the rules. If you remember what happened in Kosovo or Yugoslavia, and there were the blue helmets, right? They were NATO members, but they couldn't mingle in the conflict. It was a conflict just for the people from Yugoslavia, but NATO couldn't really help do anything, you know, direct. They couldn't intervene. and I think this is described by Venus, who is going retrograde, who is not having the power to go forwards, to take new decisions or take new steps or whatever. She's retrograde, losing power, losing strength. So and she is disposed by the enemy itself. So who's setting the rules here? Question mark. Yeah, let's see. Venus goes retrograde. I have to get rid of this here. Okay. She goes retrograde on December 19th. So this is before the Ingress chart, but just to give you an impression. So she has gone retrograde just 2 days before this Ingress. She will join Pluto on December 25th. So if you use Pluto, this describes a lot of tension and large distress, possible violence. And then she reaches Mercury, the ruler of the 12th house, right? Which describes hidden enemies or a hidden agenda, right? So this is what politicians talk about when we are not there, when nobody knows, where the press is not admitted, for example. Yeah, and she meets Mercury on December 29. So my question mark is, how reliable will help be or not as help? Because Venus turns direct only on February 1st at 11 degrees of Capricorn, when she has met, after she has met Mercury. Mercury was the 3rd house, communications, letter exchange, and the 12th house. So the hidden agenda, right? Okay. Let's see. We're still talking about the Ingress chart. So I see, well, the Ingress chart has a lot of Martian energy anyway, because Mars, well, Aries is on the MC, so the energy will be Martian anyway. But Mars also rules the 10th house of the government. He is below the horizon, close, but not too close to the point of the last solar eclipse. I will come to this in a minute. So he is below the horizon in a Caden house and Peregrine since he left Scorpio just on December 12th. So it's for us, it's in the future, in 2 days, but actually for the Ingress chart, it's already in the past, right? So he is in a weakened position in a certain way. So this describes that the power of the government has recently weakened, or what is also possible, the 6th house describes the troops, right? The army. So seeing the ruler of the government in the 6th house, there is a concentration on the army. So the troops are ruled by Jupiter, the ruler of the 6th house, and Jupiter is in the 8th house. And since Jupiter is in Aquarius, where he has no dignities, and in a nephastic house, so the troops, I would judge them to be in a bad shape or outnumbered. But this would change on December 29 when Jupiter enters Pisces, his own domicile. So it's also possible that the troops will be put on the border. Why I'm saying this? Because Jupiter is in the last degrees of Capricorn, of Aquarius. He's on the threshold. He will enter a new sign, and this is always meaning that there is something on the border, which is, well, it's obvious for troops. But we see also that Mars is in a mutable sign, which means that the troops will not stay where they are, they will be moved. Then the next point is that Mars will make a sextile to Saturn. So we can read this as Mars, the government of Ukraine, will make a step forwards to meet the interests of Saturn, who rules the enemy, Russia. So it could be that Mars makes some kind of offer to Russia, or it could mean that it wants to meet Russia's needs, but the Saturn doesn't receive Mars in any dignity, so there is no reception. So, but it could also be, and I think this is more likely, that there is some kind of threat or attempt of intimidation by the side of the Ukrainians. I can't imagine how Ukraine wants to, you know, threat, Russia, but maybe with the help of their allies. I don't know, but there is this textile, but I don't think that there's will be positive because of the lack of a reception. But I looked at the transits for the day when this happens, and since this sextile is perfect on the 29th, I looked at the transits of the planets on this day, and the moon is exactly square Saturn from the 5th house. So Saturn, the moon is, I don't remember, I think 4 or 5 degrees here. Well, when Mars meets Saturn, the moon squares Saturn. So there's a lot of distress, and certainly not so positive for the Ukrainian people. And at the same time, Mercury and Venus are conjunct in the 7th house at 11 degrees. It's not shown here in the chart, but this is from the transits. So I think there will be there is more to this conflict than we know. Obviously, as in every political controversy, but I think there will be hidden agendas with people here, the international organizations. This is Venus, and then this Mercury, what can't be told to the press, or agreements which won't see the light of the day publicly, and they discuss this here with Russia. Yeah, but yeah, Ross.
Sorry, Tania. One question from YouTube. Our audience currently asked, Jupiter will move into 9th house. Would you see it as a possible foreign help?
Well, if we consider Jupiter to be the troops, Ukrainian troops, then you can see that Jupiter will change its house, yes, and its sign. So it will get stronger, but it will enter foreign territory.
Oh.
So it's totally, you see it, right?
Yeah.
It's entering the foreign territory.
And I
would have imagined the contrary.
yeah, I agree. And it's quite interesting because you mentioned the date is around the, I think the
29.
when Jupiter moving into Pisces would be like around the Christmas.
Jupiter, the 29th of December will be totally important.
Yeah, 29, right?
Yeah, because Jupiter enters Pisces and enters the 9th sign.
That's
9th
interesting
house.
Because Caroline also mentioned when 1979 December, when Russia moved invade Afghan, is on the December 2024 on the Christmas Day, I think. Yeah, that's so.
But you see, there are so many things that happen on the 29th. Jupiter changes sign. Then Mars sextiles Saturn. Sorry, so this is
Sharon say on December 29, Mercury will join or conjunct Venus.
Yeah, this is what I said before, right? On the same day, all on the same day. And I don't remember, if I don't remember badly, then Mars at the same day joins the point of the solar eclipse here, the blue point.
Ooh.
I have this
yes, I agree. Yes,
I have this in another slide, so I have to go forward. But
yes, please.
It's there.
Please.
So you see, Jupiter changes sign. Mars and Saturn will line up in a sextile without reception. So for me, this is more of an intimidation or attempt of intimidation or some kind of threat. It's not positive. And or something that goes bad, just that doesn't have a success as it should be, while Mercury and Venus are lined up here, and she has just she's stationary direct at that point, right? Okay. Do we have something more? Yes. Okay. This is yeah. This was the last point. So the total solar eclipse is the point of the total solar eclipse. Here is the dot point. Is a blue point, 12 degrees of Sagittarius, and Mars will transit this point on same day, actually, December 13th. So yeah, the same day, 29, 30 December, which is why I expect there's something hot to happen. And I hopefully it's just that the sun will come out and it's not bombing and stuff, but you know, anyway, let's see the lunar eclipse. This is the previous lunar eclipse from the 19th of November. And what I found so totally interesting is that 2 days prior to this lunar eclipse, when the moon was already in her sign of Taurus, around 5 degrees, on that day, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov leaks the Normandy format, which is this. The Normandy format is a group of countries, actually Germany, France, I don't know, England, US, a few countries, which have met every now and then to discuss about Russian and Crimea after the first invasion of Crimea from the Russian side. So it was kind of to keep the situation under control. And the Russian foreign minister leaked part of the totally confidential communications between the different countries and different foreign ministers. And if you see, this eclipse is with Mercury going combust. It's already combust here. It's already burned, and in the 11th house of what I associate with NATO, or allies. So this Normandy format I would associate it with the 11th house. It should help Ukraine, yeah? But then Mercury is combust. Mercury is everything which is letters and so on. It's and Gressel, this is a guy from the European Council for Foreign Relations, said on Euronews, leaking such cables is a severe breach of trust and protocol. It indicates that the Kremlin is given up on Normandy protocol and will not further negotiate. How better, what better description could we have about a lunar eclipse? So I found it totally amazing to see that these papers here are burned, that there's you also see here that the sun is squaring Jupiter, and Jupiter rules papers, right? So very interesting. Next is, now let's see the Great Conjunction in Kiev. So what is it? Inside I put the Jupiter Capricorn conjunction here. This is the Jupiter Capricorn conjunction, and outside is the Capricorn Ingress for Kiev. And this is the degree of the solar eclipse. This is the degree of the lunar eclipse. And I think the lunar eclipse is particularly important for what we have already seen about the leaked documents. And it is just, exactly squaring the moon here in the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction of Kiev. But what happened, I also see here in the conjunction, let me see, I have to get rid of this thing here. Okay. The Jupiter conjunction happened for Kiev in the 8th house, right? Russia started to move its troops Mars was in Gemini in March, between March and April this year actually, between March and April, Mars was here in the 12th house of the conjunction, and now see Mars is here right now. It will cross the point of the eclipse, and then Mars will cross over this of the descendant and move to the enemy. So I think these will be very crucial points in time here, the ecliptic degree and when Mars actually crosses or enters his own exaltation, but enters the descendant if you want so. This will be, Mars will enter Capricorn on the 25th of January. Okay. And at that time, it's so interesting that Venus will be at her bendings, which is an extreme position she rarely reaches. So just keep that in mind. And at that time, on the 25th of January, the moon is in the 4th house, so which is the territory of Ukraine. Yeah, I don't really use so much the independency chart or the moment of the proclamation, because there can be conflicting charts. But if you want to use the chart when Ukraine proclaimed its independency, then it's the 24th of August. Then we see that Ukraine is actually in its if you talk about annual perfection, then the 7th house is perfected, or the perfected ascendant is in the 7th house, which makes the moon the ruler of the lord of the year. Sorry, the lord of the year. Because why I'm saying this, I don't know if you are familiar with perfection. We count one house for 1 year, and this is 30 years. Ukraine is 30 years old, so this would make Ukraine to be in the 7th house, perfection year. So this is all about finances, right? Finances. There's finances shown by Saturn. Well, Saturn is the 2nd house, rules finances, which you can move. It's money mainly, right? While the 4th house would be the soil, what is in the soil, so like oil or gas or whatever. But Saturn, in my opinion, is more that the money or the richness or the treasure you can make from whatever. In this case, it could be gas or petrol, but you sell it, and that's the point. The major income comes for Ukraine, it comes from gas, I suspect. So anyway, then we have the moon pointing to the 2nd house, so of economy. Okay. Yeah. So here in this chart, I just compare. In the inner chart is Ukraine proclaims its independency here, and the outer chart is a Capricorn Ingress for Kiev, right? And well, I think it's interesting that the Lord of the Year is in the 7th house, but in the very late degree. It will enter the 8th house, which is not a nice experience, either for modern or traditional astrologers. So I think there is no discussion about it. Actually, it is in the house of open enemies for the moment, right? In the hands of Russia, if you want so. And in this case, Russia would be symbolized as very strong, but it's going. But just see the ruler of the house is going to enter, the Lord of the Year is going to enter this house here. And the Lord of the Year, this is important, is also losing strength. Mercury is the ruler of the 6th house, troops, if you want to judge this chart this way, right? And the troops are just here in the 1st house. So there's, if you want to consider Uranus, there's Neptune if you want, but I just see the troops in the first house. There is a movement, and yeah, the necessity or no whatever, but it's also the ninth house. The ninth house takes over, so it's the ninth house. Foreign countries have some power over the first house, which is Ukrainian identity, and you know, not so nice. I can't find so many positive things there. And then we don't have the time chart for Putin. But I found it interesting if you overlay the Ingress chart of Ukraine and Vladimir Putin, and we see that his planets, we have Sun and Saturn and Mercury, are all in the fourth house of the Ingress chart, while we have his Mars pretty close here in the sixth house of troops, and we have the Moon, I think conjunct his Moon conjunct the North Node. So very interesting combination. Last but not least, I put this chart to the cartography right like half an hour ago into the talk. So just to see or to show you that but Rod, you should do this. You're much better than me in this. But I was just interested that the Saturn line here on the MC goes through Russia, right? And the Mars line goes to America. Interesting also. But anyway, yeah, this is what I can say, and I hope I haven't exaggerated with my time. 20 minutes.
No, that's amazing. Thank you, Tania. Always listen to you is like wow, you know, food of mind is like especially, yes, Sharon say fabulous. Sharon also comment like you know, yes, about the Capricorn English chart. It's the same. The personal planet was between the Mars and Saturn, even though the Mars is his own sign. Yes. And thank you, Tania. This is amazing. Oh God, you know, everyone here and on the YouTube, I think with your very careful, very precise delineation. I mean, we learn a lot from you. You know what? I think it's a bit late. Should I skip my Chinese part?
No.
especially after Tania gave a beautiful presentation. Christy said no.
no, you talk.
okay. Yes, I'm just teasing. But I will cut it very short. And also our audience on YouTube give you a very interesting. Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, we hear from you.
But if you see something positive in the chart, so please tell me, because I was just, you know, searching for it.
I know, but when you see that thing, it's like, oh God, it's a little bit worrying. But I think Christy was saying something. Oh, that was before. Sorry, a friend, friends and help might have a hidden agenda. Yeah, lots of manipulation and backstage talk going on there. I agree when you see a lot of
well, you know, there was Olaf Scholz, the new chancellor.
Yes,
he was saying that if Russia does not, you know, take away its troops, that Germany is ready.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't believe it and I don't hope it, but just think about it, because Germany totally depends on Gazprom, which is Russia and the North pipeline.
Yeah, those
and
pipeline.
I read what's interesting that the troops are not on Crimea, close to Crimea. What we could think, it's close to Belarus, between Belarus and Ukraine, and you know, they don't want Ukraine to be part of the NATO, and I think that's the main point. So you can just hope.
Yeah.
Because there are so many nuclear plants in Ukraine. I just hope that they don't make it, you know, real, that conflict.
Okay, thank you, Tania. Okay, this will stop. Okay, I will stop you, then go to my. Well, I apologize. I didn't prepare any slides. It's not because I'm lazy, because I just prepared a talk before. So I have an excuse to, not do more presentation. But I did study all this chart. Okay. We are focused on China because, well, it is very interesting at this moment. In China, what happened in China is they are really struggling. They are focused on two things, to be honest, you can say. One is the economy, trying to save their economy. Another thing, they are trying to save or trying to promote the country by the promote Winter Olympic. Is going to happen in the 4th of February 2022. And that is a 4 day after Chinese New Year. I don't know how could they handle it. If I'm a Chinese people, I'm from a Chinese background. Chinese New Year is like Christmas here. We don't want to do anything. Now you force everyone going to work on the 4th day of Chinese New Year. I would just like, anyway. Okay, so it is interesting. We can really see these two major events or two major areas from the Capricorn Ingress Chart in Beijing. Okay, here is the I want to do the combination from the two different charts. Okay, I prefer this one first. So this one is combination between the I just double check. Yes, the Capricorn Ingress Chart on the left side and the Aries Ingress Chart on the right hand side. So let me go with the Capricorn Ingress Chart, because this is what we're going to read it for the next 3 months until the Aries Ingress 2022. Then first things I will notice, because I usually would go to check if there's any angular planet. The only angular planet I can see is the sun. How interesting, the sun is in the 4th house. Then this means, well, this, I don't know why, but you maybe our colleague and our colleague online on YouTube can help me to think. I don't know, because the sun ruled the 11th house. And the 11th house in the mundane astrology usually is the parliament. But parliament in China, Alejo, you are mute, please. Unmute yourself.
Olympic Committee.
Oh, or could be, yes, could be the international organization. You're right. Yeah, but it's true. But well, the first things I think 11th house is parliament. But just like parliament in China, well, they don't really work. I mean they work, yeah, but it's
also the exchequer, the financial houses.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. Yes. If we read in that way, because it's 2nd house from 10, right? Oh, so yes. So this right. totally focus on economy, because we know. I think most people heard about the Evergrande. This huge property company is just is default on the 7th of December or 6th of December. This become the news since September 1st in China, and then in Asia area, and then very soon it become a huge international news. Remember last month around the new moon in the 11th and 12th degree of Taurus and Scorpio. They passed first challenge, they have repaid the interest. And the second time was like the day before the solar eclipse. No, after on the 6th of December. And they finally couldn't pay it at all. So they just announced it on the 6th of December on the Friday. So thank God it's a Friday, because if they announce on Monday, market will crash immediately. Interestingly, this very interesting, they only announce on Friday evening. So they give stock market to time to, try to save it. And also Chinese government announced on next day to to reduce the reserve, the cash reserve from the bank. So that means they release more money into the investment market. So the market was fall in China for 1 day on Monday, and very next day, all bounced back. They're very clever. They just like, okay, we have this problem because Evergrande is not only one particular company. It represents all the property, industrial property business in China. It is very big market. Since I did a little bit of homework, and this beginning from since 2009, and China want to like boost economic, and for them the best way to boost economic is the property market. So they give a lot of interest, and they give a lot of choice to. It's a little bit like 2005, 2006 in United States. They give a lot of loan, and they just lose the regulation. So all the property company building up and become such big. They call it too big to fall, too big to be destroyed. Because if the Evergrande default, then whole Chinese economy will fall over. And yet it's not happened yet. It's very interesting, but it's hanging there. So we can see the Aries, we can see from the Capricorn Ingress Chart, the 4th house. We know because we just, Tania just mentioned about the 4th house. It's about land, it's about border, it's about territory, but it's also about housing and agriculture. But I think here we can see a lot of things about housing. But I mean, border and the territory with China. I think they have problem with India since 2 years ago. Okay, they have they really fire up. That not really big war, but they did have a little bit of conflict there. Then they have argued with Vietnam and Philippines over the sea about where belong to China on the South China Sea. That is also 4th house issue. But I think this one related to most tricky is related to economic, because the sun ruled the 11th house, as Sharon mentioned. Thank you, Sharon. Because I never think when every time I see China's 11th house, I just like the parliament. I just don't want to talk about their parliament because it's a totalitarian country with a parliament. What I can do, but thank you, Sharon. Is the check thingy? I think also because the Venus conjunct Pluto, and the Venus is retrograde stationary there on the Capricorn Ingress Chart, and Venus rule the 2nd house. Sorry, I don't use whole sign, so it's a little bit from Tania, but I mean it's easy for me. But it's rule the 2nd house.
Could that be a problem with pollution, with the 4th house being the land and Venus being retrograde and conjunct Pluto?
You mean pollution?
Yeah.
It's possible. It's possible because I mean, if you look at Aries Ingress Chart, pollution would be the big issue in China. The Neptune on the descendant. So pollution, virus, those things. I think I agree with you. That is possible. Especially, I don't know. This will be tricky because what? This is Capricorn Ingress Chart. Usually cover the whole period of Chinese New Year. And this is usually the air quality, worst air quality in China, because over Chinese New Year, everybody have the incense, burn the paper, and have a firework. I remember there's 1 year I was in Shanghai and Beijing. I really have to going out with like PPE 2, the filter mask to going out. They don't have a virus that time, but it's like polluted. It's possible. It's possible. But I think this is also with economic, one way with economic. And then Holy Stellium has a ruler, Saturn, in the 5th house. And this is again very interesting things. The Saturn is a strong ruler in the 5th house. What I can see is Olympics. Is what?
Yeah, Olympics, but also speculation.
Yeah, speculation. And it's Olympic, I think, for the Olympic, because Olympic become their big PR event. It's a huge PR event for them at this moment. So they are kind of quite pissed off when UK, US, Australia all say we're going to diplomatically boycott Winter Olympic. They are just like quite upset. But thank God, I think Emmanuel Macron just smooth up, say, nah, it's useless. We don't do that. Okay, so the Olympic game would become their major thing to, you know, that's what they focus, what in one way, but in another way, it's a separation. It's separation because if you know the another event, this is also represented by Venus conjunct Pluto opposite the moon. We know the tennis player, female tennis player from China, Peng Shuai, she was disappeared after she revealed her scandal with a senior politician. That senior politician could be the number 5 or number 6 in Chinese government rank. Okay.
Is this a minister? Sorry, because
he is
11th
kind
house
of
is also ministers, you know.
Oh, thank you. 11. So, yeah. Yes. Was the he is? I think so. He is number 6 around that time. Then she tried to. I think she wasn't want to against the government, but I think she really want to express her disappointment about their relationship. Then she been muted and disappeared. Of course, they make her say, "I'm fine." She make a phone call with the International Olympic community of Olympic, the chef of International Olympic Committee, and then you know she said, "I'm fine. Don't worry about me." But everyone else say, "Well, we don't believe this is China. We don't believe unless you can." She can freely going out. This is the Venus conjunct Pluto opposite the moon, and that 4th house and 5th house to border, and then Saturn ruling it in the 5th house. It's all about all about Olympic, and they try to, you know, smooth it, and yet what will I think? Because I think the economic is such important things, and from the Aries Ingres chart, we noticed the mutable sign rising. Thank Sharon's influence. Everyone working on this now. Me and Alejo especially. So we will look at. I think I have to even is Capricorn Ingress, but I still want to consider a little bit about the Libra Ingress because it's the, you know, is the second part of the year. And we can see, because I remember I read this chart, and the sun is 1st house ruler, conjunct Mars in the 2nd house. That was the time I was teaching in China, and I did say we should be very, very careful with economic, and especially with housing thing. That was I think I make that talk very early. I think it was like before summer, around the summertime, because what you can see very clearly, Mars 4th house ruler was combust with Sun in the 2nd house, and that was so clear. That kind of and if you know the property business is the biggest one in China. It's biggest one. They rely on it. They couldn't let it go. So this become the very, very dangerous things in China. That's already mentioned it in the Libra Ingress chart. And now we have the similar pattern, but the focus on 4th house, property and territory. And then the 2nd house ruler go into the 4th house conjunct with Pluto. This is pretty tricky things. This is what I think. Finally, well, I mean, between Taiwan and China, well, I sincerely hope it's not going to happen anything tricky, but you know, there's a few things kind of a worry, to be honest, but I don't think it would be soon because there's Olympic game. So, I mean, rational speaking, logically speaking, they probably don't want to do that. before their Olympic game. After that, we don't know. We will look another chart next time. Then this is, I put the Ingress chart above the Capricorn, above the CCP chart, Chinese Communist chart. This is the on the 1st of October 1949, 3:15. I know other astrologers use a little bit earlier time, something like 3 o'clock or even 2:45 or something. I don't know. I prefer this chart. This chart speaks to me. So, and well, doesn't matter because you can see the Mars. You can see the Ingress chart Mars on the 5-degree Sagittarius right on their Chiron. And the Mars is 10th house ruler. This explains how insecure and how fragile that government at this moment, because Chiron is wounded and need to be healed. Okay, and this also gives us some idea, you know, how this government is take care of everything about economy to the Olympic game and to the border issue with other country. And we can see because if you can notice the Saturn, Pluto is nearly it's 25-degree Capricorn. Soon, I mean, when it moves into Aquarius, it will conjunct China's moon and then Ascendant. Well, I don't know about China, what's going to happen to China, I don't know, but I know one country have same experience called Iceland. When 2009, Pluto moved from 29-degree, from 29-degree Sagittarius. That was right on Iceland's first house Ascendant. And we know what happened to Iceland. This whole country have bankrupt. So country have to rebuild it again. So this is my view of the Capricorn Ingress. So far, we can see they are trying very hard. They are trying very hard to save the property market. But are they going to be success? I really, really doubt, because Saturn is on Ascendant. Uranus square it from the 3rd house. I think, well, the area and the business, the small business, and the people will have a huge suffer. Government maybe say nothing, but people in the represented by 1st house, represented by Saturn, are going to suffer. What I learned from the news last week is they are starting to reduce the salary of what do we call public sector, the public servant. So the people who working for the government, they lose big part of their salary. It's not basic salary, but they lot of like what do we call it? Lose money to extra money. What do we call it? Sorry, I forget. Suddenly I lost the words. They lose those money, so they couldn't claim those
benefits.
Benefits, yeah. So that for them, that's a lot. That's a lot. So they soon will hit other people. First from the public servant, and then soon all the country will hit by these economic things. Well, I think I just covered the very basic of the Capricorn Ingress chart situation in China, but I think because we have very short time now, it's like nearly 8:30 is already 30 minutes away from what we're expecting. So I think we should, stop here.
Yeah, Rod.
Yes.
I was watching the Capricorn Ingress and I realized that Mars is antition of Pluto.
Okay. Oh, wow. Let me check. Let me check. Oh, Mars is antition of Pluto.
Of Pluto.
Oh, that is interesting.
Sí. So it behaves like a conjunction.
Oh, yes. Oh, and oh, God. That means the whole world. It's not only China, right?
Yeah, it's whole world.
Yeah, that would be a whole world. Thank you, Anna. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Tania. Thank you, Alejo. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Christy. And thank you, everyone here and also on the YouTube. I think, well, this year is a huge experience for me. I mean, I'm usually quite lazy, to be honest. and I don't know, for running the Mundane Astrology track, I say, okay, I need to do this, I need to do that. Well, I have a lot of experience for all these kind of things. So hopefully we will continue next year. And then I think I really enjoy this discussion group, and you know, always a lot of people want to, you know, share their experience and their knowledge. Thank you everyone to join us. Thank you, Julia. Keep support us, and thank you for
fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Well, so we'll see you next year, and I hope everyone health and safe and happy. So I will say first, happy Christmas, Happy New Year for everyone.
Happy Capricorn Ingress to everyone.
Oh, happy Capricorn Ingress. Yes.
Alejo, that's right.
Yes.
Very appropriate for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks, Rod.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Bye, everybody. Have a nice
Bye.
evening. Have a
Bye.
nice
Bye.
weekend. Bye.